Native Pulse, a conversation series to uplift and inspire thought and movement across our collective communities.
Hamatakiapi, Iuhachante Washten Apechiuzapi, Raven Marshall Imachiapi. My name is Raven Marshall. I'm a creative associate for Seventh Generation Fund. And here with me today is one of our board members, Deb Sanchez. Deb, you can introduce yourself.
Hi. Aku kichichante kikikikich, sexual kuko kakismo chuela sanchi katindesh, kapanish kumalo kiswa hilhina kalamo hilimu, kush each na kuti. Deborah Sanchez, and I was just saying hello to everyone. My name is She Loves the People, and I'm happy to be here with all of you. I'm a board member for Seventh Generation Fund. Also, I teach my native language to my community, and I've been participating in our cultural revitalization for a couple of decades.
Thanks, Deb. I wanted to start off by asking, how are you taking care spiritually, mentally, physically during this time?
Yeah, this has been very challenging for me on many levels. The thing is the concern for others. I have a large family here in the Los Angeles area, of course, friends all over the world, and worrying about people, I think. But to stay grounded, I've been in a lot of meditation and prayer. I've been sending songs, native songs, to some of my friends, and in particular to my one friend in the hospital. I've also been alone for all this time, and here I'm a judge in Los Angeles County, and they closed my courthouse, and also because I was in quarantine, I haven't been working, but I go back on Monday, and that's going to be challenging as well because they're sending me to a different building. And, one of the essential services, of course, is court. So along with that, I think that just the contemplation, I've had a lot of being alone, being isolated from people has been just so hard. My two parents are elderly. They're both in their 80s. And to not see anyone or have contact with them has been very, very difficult for me. I love people, and I've been doing a lot of Zoom classes as well, and I think part of what's keeping my sanity is working on the language, listening to old songs that were recorded on the wax cylinder of our people. There's also I've been hosting Zoom classes for my family for language, and also hosting every Sunday what I call coffee with grandma and grandpa with my parents and my whole family. Everybody's been helpful. Just this morning, I was able to talk to two of my neighbors, and then wave to one of them across the street one is a nurse, and also one is a firefighter. So they're essential workers, and like I said, I'll be back too. But I guess the main thing to say is in this isolation, this contemplation of all of the things that are very important. I think that it's shed light all over the world, not only on our personal priorities, but also our global priorities. And it's also shine light on the absolute failure of this country to do anything that is national or meaningful. But also the other thing I think is that it sparked me to think about things that I need to do in my life, and things that I've been worried about in terms of time. Did I have the time? Do I have the energy? Well, I do. I mean, you just have to wrap your mind around those things and take. I have a Juris Doctorate degree, but I'm going to go back to school for linguistics. I have my application in. But those are some of the things, I mean, I think just thinking about, and also being grateful for my orange and lemon trees I have in the backyard, I've been picking fruit, and sometimes I wouldn't have time, and now I realize I've been sharing those items as well with people. But now that this quarantine is over, hopefully I can be more involved in helping my community.
Yeah, I feel that way about always feeling like you don't have time, because we get up and we go to our jobs, and we have kind of like the American dream, and you kind of put all those things, at least for me, I know I do, kind of like lower priority. They're still a priority, but it's like, when am I gonna have time to learn my language, and like, oh, that would be great to learn my language, but I don't know if I can devote time because I have to go to work and I have to go to school. And then the world comes to a complete halt, and you realize that all of this was constructed, made for us to feel that way, like we didn't have time to take care of those important things, especially family and cultural connections. And so I personally am really, I'm grateful in a way for this pause, so I can go back and kind of take care of those things and nurture those things that I haven't been able to devote time to.
Right, and the other thing too, I was going to encourage you about the language, because for all of us, that worldview of that we carry with us, our Indigenous worldview is really reflected in our own language. How our language is constructed, and what we refer to is really embedded in the language, and it's really important. I want to encourage everybody out there as well. Even if you have just a few minutes a day, do something. If you can just do something, if you can devote that space of time to learning your language, you should do it, because it's critically important. It also just reminds us that we don't have to think the way this broader society thinks. We don't think that way, and we don't have to be that way. And I think that by changing the paradigm of everything in the world has a lot to do with recognizing our own values and all of the things that we know are important. The original instructions, as they're called, the way to live. My grandparents were such an influence on me that everything that we do in life it contributes to the world, and how we treat each other and how we treat ourselves is critically important. So learning your language is something that is important, and I would encourage everybody that's listening, if you're learning your language, keep doing it. If you haven't started, devote a little bit of time to it. If you do already know your language, teach it to others. You'll find people. I was very frustrated in the beginning because I felt, does anybody love my language the way I do? And I went to a seminar once, and I remember one of the language, somebody who had revitalized their language, Miamia, had said, you may not find those people, but don't give up. And I would cry sometimes out of frustration because I was so fearful of losing it, having it lost or not continue. But after a while, people appeared, and I have a core group of language students that are continuing to carry on. So it is important, and I think that prioritizes this world event is prioritizing a lot of the things that we need to do, not only just culturally, but in the respect and the love for our Mother Earth, for our Mother Kiashoni. We Native people who have been exposed to or live in a traditional way, we recognize that we're part of this fabric of creation, of all creation. we're not better than or more than anything else. But I think for the vast majority of, quote, Americans, um, that hierarchy that has been distributed through religion and also ways of being, um, you get people like that say, sacrifice the elders for the economy. What kind of thinking is that? That's crazy thinking. That's psychosis thinking. But this is part of our reality. And so in the prayers we have, in the songs we sing, in the ceremonies we participate in, and in our intentions in terms of our language and speaking our language and taking that effort, are all part of the healing that that is so needed in this world.
Thank you. Yeah.
I've been reading more and more articles lately about, the unsustainability of capitalism and what are the inherent violences in capitalism, and how does that affect our world. I've heard Chris Peters say a lot, and maybe we'll do a native pulse about this in the future, but relationship economy, which to my understanding is traditional indigenous economy. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. I think that the relationship economy has a lot to do with not just our relationships with each other as human beings, but relationships with the world around us. It's relationships with the unseen. So many people rely on what is seen and not the unseen. And yet, at the same time, I wasn't raised that way. I was raised with the unseen. So there are all these relationships through our ancestors, through those who have come before us, through people we don't even know also. The world we live in, all of the things that we think of, quote, as ecology, all of those relationships with other relatives, whether they be the winged, the creepy crawlers, all of the fish in the marine life, all of those are our relatives. And so those relationships are really important. The respect for these lives as well, and for all of things that are in existence, I think is important, because we don't have that kind of not Native people, but not a lot of traditional Native people, I would say. We have the relationship, but it's a lot of people outside of that weren't raised that way. Not to say that they wouldn't adopt it if they had that exposure, but I think also that there's a lot of people, and the majority of people, they don't have those relationships. They don't think in that way of being intertwined, of thinking, like, for example, the Haudenosaunee 7th generation, looking into the future, recognizing that our actions today impact the future. We also have to recognize and also be grateful for all those that came before us, that survived the genocide and the Holocaust that occurred in this country so that we could be here. And it was wave after wave after wave. So these relationships, I think, they're extremely important. There's also recognition that every person has their gift. And I think in modern society, in, quote, American society, there's this push for, you want to be like the best at everything. That's not our way. You're going to have people that are going to be better at some things than others, and they share those gifts, and that recognition, that relationship with others that have roles in our communities, that respect, that love, that acknowledgement of those gifts is very important for us.
You are listening to Native Pulse, a conversation series bringing forth the heart, knowledge, and drive of Indigenous communities to the people.
And there's a book called Columbus and Other Cannibalism I refer to it a lot. It's by Dr. Jack Forbes. And one of the things he talks about is the withical psychosis that was brought to this country about the overuse and use to exhaustion of quote, resources. What Americans refer to as natural resources, which are our sacred elements. Also people as well, to use people, like making sacrifices of people versus, and then also nature, extraction industries, etc. But he also says in this book, and John Trudell, by the way, called it a virus that gets into people's ways of being, and they forget about what their role is in the world. And John Trudell says the role is to live in harmony with the earth, with Mother Nature, with Mother Earth. And so I think in the book, Dr. Jack Forbes also talks about our people not being immune, because the exposure to these types of values, these exposure to quote, these advertising and visions of success and of what makes you quote valuable in the community or in the world, those are all illusions, as is federal Indian law. It's an illusion. We have to think way outside of that. Of course, I am also in a compromised situation with my own job, but I try to bring the medicine that I have, that I carry with me in my ways of being, to that space. It's hostile. It's hostile. It goes against so much of what I believe in, but at the same time, there is a space there for people to come and for me to actually listen to them. It's an art that I think a majority of people are just losing, and hopefully now people are trying to get a little bit of a glimpse. And a lot of folks don't realize that when they talk about shelter in place, wash your hands, there's for a lot of our Native people, those things are not available. It's not like everybody has running water or has the supplies they need to stay safe. There's a lot of people out there that are exposed over and over again, and our communities are among the most vulnerable. We're among the most vulnerable because not only do we have a lack of resources, there's also it's harder sometimes for our people to get information on how to keep themselves safe. But I think that it's going to be worldwide, and I hope that I just read an article about the gaslighting that's coming, and basically what the article was saying was that when this is all quote over, that it's going to be like it never happened. Let's get back to normal. My prayer is that doesn't happen. That we don't quote get back to normal. That we recognize the impact that we're having on this earth and all over the world, and especially this country. It's like the worst example of how to be in a world of countries. And so there's this microcosm of our own families and our own communities, and then this macrocosm of the majority society that we're forced to live in. This is our nightmare. This is our nightmare. I have a friend, a professor at Cal State Long Beach, that says every day we wake up to the trauma, and this is part of it. And how we maneuver through that is going to be critically important on maintaining our self-dignity, remembering those quote original instructions, remembering to live humbly and authentically, and also to be aware that we are just simply a part heart with everything else in the world that's been created.
Thank you for that. Especially when you said John Trudell, I know exactly the writings you're talking about.
And he suffered a lot. He lost his whole family. And I think that when we talk about those kinds of things, when I think of my grandparents, the suffering that they went through, my grandfather being placed in a Catholic orphanage when he was a young boy, he also went through the Spanish flu, the pandemic of 1918. And he told us stories about when he was in a hospital or a place where they kept all these folks that were affected, and he had it in his mind that if he stayed there, he was going to die. So he forced himself to get out of that location, which was probably the best thing he could do, and he lived till he was 94. So these struggles that our family members went through, that our ancestors went through, they should never be lost on us. They should never be lost, because these are the struggles and the events that they lived through so that we could be here. And that gratitude should never wane from us throughout our whole lives.
Yeah, absolutely. We carry that with us as the next generation. I just think it's so powerful that, you healing your trauma is really healing, your ancestral trauma that's been passed down to your family. And it's our responsibility in our time to heal, so the next generation can live a happy and healthy life.
Exactly. And let me give you a kind of an example or an anecdotal story about that. Is in 2001, Seventh Generation, I was first introduced to Seventh Generation as an affiliate. And what we did is they supported us in crossing with our traditional canoe, our traditional canoe from the mainland to the island. And our islands of origin for the Smuish people, the Chumash people, are off the coast of California in the Channel Islands, the Northern Channel Islands. Anyway, by going back, we had the canoe medicine had been underground for more than 150 years, and that was the first time a traditional vessel had actually crossed from the mainland to the islands. And I think through that, not only people would it spark revitalization of maritime ways, our culture, our language, but also our kids. They begin to meet each other. I have two nieces that married other Chumash men, and my brother and sister-in-law found each other through all the people in the world. I mean, I think the ancestors know what they're doing. They knew about us. They knew about us, and what we were going to have to do in order to return to those traditional ways and what we needed to do to survive. And one of the things, and the reason I was saying this story, is that our kids, that from that long ago in 2001 we started crossing, the kids would ask questions like, when you used to come here when you were a little girl, did you this and this? But I didn't go there when I was a little girl. I didn't go there. So in their histories, in their minds, this is normal. Mm-hmm. So when the canoes would go on to the shore of the beach, which is on Limu, which is also called Santa Cruz Island, they would put the babies and the little ones inside the canoe so they can feel that feeling of being inside the canoe. This is normal. This is the new normal. And for all of us that that recognize that these things are so critically important to our kids, for their identity, for their health, their well-being, it sparks you and inspires you to continue that work despite all of the other things in opposition to this way of being, which is basically American society in general. But anyway, that's what I wanted to tell you, is that the kids, this is their new normal. This is how our kids meet each other. And we're scattered. We are scattered throughout California and other places because of the history of California. I'm grateful for that.
That's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, oh, that makes me emotional.
Me too.
Yeah, the power of ceremony and those traditions, and seeing that live on in the young ones is super powerful, super healing. Even may not have grown up that way.
That's probably part of the point, is that you, even if you weren't, whatever your backgrounds are, whatever, anybody listening who wasn't raised in those are things that can be reclaimed, recaptured. And there's so many people, whether or not they're from your immediate community, but other Native Indigenous people that will mentor you, that will help you, that already love you. So it's important for us to be there for one another.
That's a beautiful message to kind of end on, I think, being there for one another. We talked about so many important and profound topics. And I thank you so much, Deb, for sharing with me, and congratulations on going back to school for your linguistics.
Oh, thank you.
That's so exciting. And yeah, I've learned so much, and I think we all can learn a lot. Just going forward and, remembering to take this time to heal, especially, during times like this when the world is hurting. I guess Uchimaka, Mother Earth, she's not hurting as much, but us as people and our families and our communities. So such a important message to be there for each other, learn your language, even if it's just, a word a day. Yeah, thank you for your stories. That's such a powerful story of the canoe journeys. Yeah, and how, and your language revitalization. And I thank you for the work that you've done for that, and then give it life again. So I think that's really, really powerful. And I'm inspired, and it's been an honor to have this conversation with you.
Thank you, Raven. It's been an honor to be with you as well. I just want to say ikalikshash, which is take care of yourselves, everyone. Appreciate this time with you.
Well,